Welcome back to the G Life. All right, so it's Valentine's Day, almost. If you're into that sort of thing, this is that time where you start trying to open yourself up and be like, I'm gonna do something different. If I'm still single, I'm gonna do different things. And so a lot of people are like getting those like Tinder passports and looking outside of their normal locations to try and find something different, some strange, right? So I thought I would give you some advice, some insights on dating multiculturally, multi-ethnically, and intercontinentally. I'm an expert. If you watch this video, you're gonna find out how I have navigated this world through dating way outside of my area codes. So subscribe to the channel. I am G, and I'm going to give you my expertise on dating multiculturally. So I could be an expert. Like, honestly, I might be an expert in dating multiculturally, multi-ethnically. I have like 10 years experience in this realm, all right? If you don't know, I'm in Italy, and my partner's Italian, not Italian American, like proper Italian. He's not ever lived in the United States. I'm also his first woman of color. Maybe not of color, I'll take that back. I'm his first Black American woman. I'm pretty sure first Black, like proper Black woman. And yeah, so there's a wide chasm between our cultures, all right? And we are together. Now, before my current partner, I lived in France with a French man. And he was also proper French, never lived in America until he met me, and we lived there together for a little while. But again, whole different ethnicity, whole different culture, whole different language. I have also dated men in Spain. I've dated men from Spain in the United States. From Germany and Russia, and a little Eastern Bloc action, as well as Caribbean men and from Jamaica or some of the islands. So I have a wide variety of attractions. So that being said, I think that makes me an expert, relatively speaking. Obviously, I ain't date everybody everywhere, but I have navigated those intercontinental, multicultural, like proper multicultural. I'm not just talking about two Americans, one who is Puerto Rican and one who is, white or Black, who don't understand how they grew up in America together. So that's one of the first lessons that I think is important. Nationality often takes precedence over the potential of cultural changes based on ethnicity. And what I mean by that, two French people, an African French person and, a white French person, who both were born and raised in France, consider themselves French first, okay? So there is a basis in what it means to be French that they would be able to connect to. In America, you can have an Asian person and a white person who grew up in the same neighborhood, but can have very different cultures and what it means to be an Asian American versus a white American. And so there's still some disconnects, even though technically they should have the same culture. I think that's one of the first things that when, especially as a Black American, dating outside of your culture, one of the first things is trying to navigate what that means for you in your Blackness. For example, a lot of times when we're, as Black Americans, going into someone else's culture, home, even in the United States, one of the early questions we generally ask is, do they know that I'm Black? You know, like, do they know? Even if you don't ask, you wonder, right? You start to be like, And from there, you have to get ready for something that you might not necessarily need to get ready for, going to somebody else's home that's Black in a different way. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't think I ever got an answer. I know I asked when the first time I was meeting my partner's family. I had just arrived. We had only known each other for about 10 days, and not been together 10 days, but known each other like for 10 days, because I met him and we hung out and then I left, but we kept in contact before I ended up coming back here. So the first time I met his family, spending a whole month with them. Now, he didn't tell me this was the case when we were going. I knew we were going to his summer house or whatever, but he didn't say like his entire family was going to be there until we were like on our way. I don't know what I would have done anyway. I left it. I had abandoned everything else I know, so I don't know what I was gonna do at that point. Anyway, what could I have done? I just had to deal. So it's kind of crazy. So, I wasn't sure what to expect, like from the standpoint of, is this something you do? Like you just bring strange women home to your family to spend a month with them? Is that like, are they just like, oh, that's what he does, so hey girl? Or even if that's, like where am I going to be in this with all of it? Or just like, oh, okay, that's weird, but why is she Black? Like you just never know. And actually, it was perfectly fine from the beginning. But all the things were perfectly fine from the beginning. So there was no issues, but like that's this family is not a standard. So as I have been navigating this, the situation in different cultures is always different. My life in France was different. That relationship with his family was very different. But what I came to learn was the tension wasn't about me. It was about their son and his problems in his life and how he was living. Things that I didn't know and hadn't discovered really until we were living there together. That's just something that I think is standard, has nothing to do with culture. You sometimes find out what people are hiding about themselves when you are able to see them in their environment and things you didn't know come to light. So when there's a big pond between you, lots of things can happen that you have no idea when they left their space or you leave your space that was going on outside of your knowledge. That's another thing, like you have to be prepared for and determine whether or not it's something you can deal with. I think one of the challenges is honestly giving up so many expectations of what you think your relationship will look like. I say that because often when we're developing our ideas of what kind of relationship we want, how we want it to look, when you are dating someone intercontinentally, there's a lot of space that you have to do work in. And if you guys speak different languages, you have to be ready to learn another language. So far, I have learned enough French when I was there to have decent conversation. Now I'm in Italy and I'm still working on this language, but there are a few videos here where you see me speaking Italian. So I've had to learn two different languages to live this life, right? Two different languages. You have to be ready to try and communicate with somebody whose first language isn't English. And that means so much. There's so many things lost in translation. And it can be simple things that just end up frustrating the shit out of you, or really, really big things because the rhythm of how we talk is so different. Like Latin languages are so specific, it's just like these minute details, all wrapped up in a word. Whereas in English, we can say it's a truck, and that could mean any type of truck. It could be a pickup truck, a semi truck, a cement truck, there's so many things that fall under truck. In most Latin language, you would never get a generalized word like that. So if you said truck, you mean a very specific kind of vehicle. And then, a semi-truck is called something completely different. It doesn't even have the word truck in it, So it's very specific. And when people learn to speak like that, they speak like that in their everyday, So sometimes like things where in English we generalize, and we kind of get the gist. There's none of that here. There's no gist. There's no, there's lots of nuance, but it's very specific nuance. And that communication style is carried out in their romantic relationships too. So you have to learn new ways of speaking and thinking and negotiating. It's completely something else. So it's something you definitely need to consider when you are deciding to jump the pond and go meet that Tinder date in Poland or Iceland or Kenya or Morocco. Who knows? Wherever you set your little destination. And then there's the shit you give up, especially when you decide to live in another country. Y'all know how long it's been since I've had tacos. Pandemics have ruined my life. I have not had a proper taco in like 2 years now. There's no Target, right? There's no stores like Target. There's none of that. I'm talking a lot. Okay, don't judge me for this plastic bottle. We get glass recycled bottles delivered, but I drink so much water. I've gone through 3 weeks of water already. So we had to get this because the delivery man's not gonna come outside of the schedule. Anyway, it's exhausting. Sometimes, I'm telling you, and not just from my perspective, he'd be exhausted talking to me. I'm telling you, it is not just, romance. Oh, and that's the other thing. If you think that, you find this suave, French man or whatever, you have a romantic story. We met in a cafe, blah, blah, blah. Maybe once is like that, and then the rest of it is just pourquoi? That's the rest of it. So it's not as exciting as it seems sometimes. What else? I feel like I have a lot to do, like raising intercultural children and making sure that I give them the right exposure to American culture, to Black culture, to all of the things that they're not going to get in the United States. I want them to understand that. And then I also have to navigate my experience and my life as a Black American in another culture. And sometimes that's really, really difficult. I have so many stories, and maybe I'll share some of them sometimes, but sometimes that can be really difficult because people, again, speak differently. And sometimes you're like, should I punch you in the face, or is something lost in translation? Like, you have to feel more energetically how people are coming at you so you respond appropriately. I think it's an experiment, you know, like trying to navigate these waters are like, it's not easy. It's not easy. You have to be ready for so much. You have to think about so many different options. Even if they're living in the United States, there's so many things that you have to get ready for, especially if you decide to get serious. Immigration, what it's like to date a stranger. Another thing that I find interesting, a lot of words in Europe that are foreigners, that means foreigners, means stranger. That's like the unknown, something that feels like you stay away from a little bit. So there are cultural biases back and forth. You have to like really, really explore what you're ready for. Now, I'm not down in it. Obviously, I'm doing it and it's working out just fine. But I think you just need to know you have to put in work, like a little extra work that you may have if you just, kept your circle within 2 kilometers of where you live, because it's just a little easier when someone's down the street. There's lots of just little hidden things that you might not expect from dating interculturally that come up, and you have to be ready for, especially if you know you want to work it out. If you know you want to do it, then you'll make it happen. That's what we do. But it ain't gonna be easy. It's not gonna be easy. I think I never know if people know my personal stories, but when I would tell this story, one time, this was when I was with a French guy, a friend of mine left a picture on my Facebook page. It was like eggs and bacon or something, and sausages. No sausages. It was eggs and bacon, like a ton of bacon. And this was because I have been getting on him about eating more healthfully and less pork and less greasy things. Anyway, he was like, here's my breakfast to give me shit. So the French guy saw this photo and interpreted it sexually. I was like, and so this was a big fight. So he comes and he's like, who is this man on your page with the bacon? And I was like, what? Because I hadn't even looked at social media. And anyway, this is when I finally looked, and I was like, oh, ha, ha, ha. And I explained the whole food thing. He's like, no, you must be having sex with him. It's like, how can I be having sex with him? He's in a whole other country, and I'm in another country. What are you talking about? It's absurd. But I was like, oh, shoot. Maybe bacon in French is to sausage in America. Like, is that a thing? So I asked, like, and then he thought I was crazy. Anyway, the conversation was absurd. It was so stupid. And all of that because of some other interpretation of bacon. I don't know. But dumb shit can happen. And sometimes it's really, really dumb. I would say, and this is my advice from my experience, is just be ready to be open to new possibilities, to new everything. Like, just be ready. Just be like, okay, I'm gonna try this out, and maybe it'll be great, maybe it won't. And if it doesn't suit me, close the circle and move on. I think a little romantic adventure is fun. So get your passports ready for when the world opens up. And then, yeah, find love everywhere in the world. That's what I think. So have fun. And if you have any questions for me, let me know in the comments. Let me know how your multicultural relationships have fared. Tell me stories, ask me questions. If you want to hear something else, some more specific stories, let me know. But go ahead, subscribe, and ciao for now.